Channel we are in GI physiology, so it's chapter 73, that is the function of large intestine. So this is the last part, like in absorption, digestion. So now we are going to see the large intestine physiology. Here we have the glossary term, the crypts of lubricants and the enteritis. So what is crypts of lubricant? It's an invagination of epithelium into the submucosa, and it contains specialized secretory cells. They are found especially in small intestine and large intestine. So crypts or lubricants are nothing but the epithelium only folds itself into the submucosa and forms like invaginations, that is crypts of lubricants. So these crypts of lubricants are found both in small intestine and also in the large intestine. And next comes the enteritis. Enteritis, whenever the word itis comes, it's nothing but the inflammation. So enteritis is the inflammation of intestine. Now let us see the secretion of mucus by large intestine. So large intestine also produces mucus, same like small intestine, but let us see the process. So mucus secretion, the mucus of large intestine mainly have many crypts of lubricant, but they are not having villi. That is the main reason why the absorption or this absorption of particles here in the small intestine, it plays a major role, but not the large intestine, because they are having no villi and no digestive enzymes are secreted from the epithelial cells. Even there are no villi and also no digestive enzymes. If no enzymes means no digestion, so even digestion doesn't take place in the large intestine, but only have mucus secreting cells, that is mucus cells. So the large intestine only work is to produce the mucus by its mucus cells. So it doesn't have any work, it doesn't have digestion work, it doesn't have absorption work. So this mucus have moderate bicarbonate, which is secreted by few non-mucus secreting epithelial cells. So mucus produced by it has bicarbonate, but that bicarbonate is produced from some non-mucus cells. So the rate of secretion of mucus is regulated by tactile stimulation, means just by as the food is passing to the large intestine, that food itself only will lead to the stimulation of production of mucus of epithelial cells which are lining the large intestine, and by local nervous reflexes to the mucus cells in the crypts of lubricants. So from the crypts of lubricants also there are some local reflexes. So by means of this local reflexes the mucus starts secreting. So the rate of secretion of mucus is regulated by tactile stimulation. Yeah, we have done this. And by local nervous reflexes. So the stimulation of pelvic nerves from the spinal cord, which carry the parasympathetic nerves, which innervation to the distal half and 1/3 of large intestine. This also cause to increase in mucus secretion, which occurs along with increase in peristaltic motility of colon. So actually there are some stimulus which are coming from pelvic nerves by means of parasympathetic nervous system. They innervate this to cause more increase in secretion of mucus, and also there is along with it simultaneously there is also increase in more amount of peristaltic movement. Now you can understand, more mucus is coming, more peristaltic movement, this finally lead to defecation of colon. So during extreme parasympathetic stimulation, which is caused by emotional disturbances or stress like that, so much mucus is secreted in the large intestine that person bowel movement, ropey mucus often every 30 minutes, which contain little or no fecal matter. So sometimes if a person is suffering with always mucus excretion without any fecus in it, then it is because of extreme stimulation of parasympathetic nervous system, especially due to emotional disturbances like stress or any unusual any bad situation. So because of that they'll have directly the mucus fecus without any no fecal matter. Next, coming to the functions of mucus secretion. So what are the functions? Why this mucus secretion? Why it is secreted? Why? So the mucus mainly protect the intestinal wall against the excoriation. So the main function we know already. We in the small intestine everywhere the same function. Even in the esophagus the same function. Esophagus also secrete only mucus. As a food may it may damage the walls of intestine. So to prevent that the mucus mainly is secreted, and it provides an adherent medium for holding fecal matter. You know adherent means it holds the fecal matter together and forms some solid like material and protect from bacteria of fecus. Mucus along with the alkalinity of secretion, it is caused by large sodium bicarbonate, its pH is like 8, which provides a barrier to keep acids formed in the fecus from attacking the intestinal wall. So sometimes even though in our small intestine, because of pancreatic secretions, everything gets neutralized, but sometimes because of bacteria, some of acid may be produced even in the large intestine. So even to break that also, the alkaline nature is produced by sodium bicarbonate, which is released by some secretions in large intestine, and also of course our mucus also protects. So diarrhea is caused by excess secretion of water, electrolytes in response to irritation. So sometimes there is some irritation in our large intestine, so because of that there may be lot of loss of water and electrolytes in the fecus, so which occurs when the bacterial infection become rampant, that is very high bacterial infection during enteritis. Enteritis means inflammation, right? The mucus secrete extra large quantities of water, electrolytes in addition to normal viscid alkaline mucus. So this secretion dilutes irritating factors and cause rapid movement of fecus towards anus, results in diarrhea, loss of water, electrolytes. So it also wash away the irritants, which can also promote early recovery from disease. So sometimes diarrhea is useful because it will also remove that irritants which is causing this primary cause, but sometimes it is more than its usefulness, it's harmful if it is more times, because it may also lead to death of the person. So extreme secretion of chlorine ions and sodium and water from large intestine epithelium in some times of diarrhea. So extreme secretion, sometimes chlorine also will go, sodium also will. The sodium and chlorine also goes, our osmotic balance is also lost. So it may lead to extreme diarrhea. Immature, actually sometimes the immature epithelial cells start forming the new epithelial cells between the intestinal folds, and this new epithelium spread outward over the luminal surface of intestine. In deep cells, the epithelial cells secrete sodium chloride and water into the intestinal lumen. This secretion is reabsorbed by older epithelial cells outside the folds, providing the flow of water for absorbing intestinal digestions. So sometimes if the immature epithelial will form like this kinds of cells, it will lead to more secretion. So the older cells try to manage it. So if this new epithelial cells are like this and the older epithelial cells are not functional, then that may also again lead to severe diarrhea, because all the sodium, salts, water, everything will be lost in the fecus. So toxins of cholera and some other types of diarrheal bacteria stimulate the epithelial fold secretion so greatly that this secretion becomes greater than can be reabsorbed, causing the loss of 5 to 10 liter of water and sodium chloride each day. So sometimes there are some severe conditions like toxins of cholera. They release lot of sodium chlorides, lot of water, that even the large intestine can't manage it to reabsorb that much of its release, so it will lead to diarrhea. So within 1 to 5 days, many severe patients may die of this loss of fluid alone. So extreme diarrhea by cholera toxin into epithelial cells may lead to formation of excess cyclic adenosine monophosphate. So because of this, it opens the number of chlorine channels, allowing chlorine ions to flow rapidly from inside the cell to intestinal crypts, which activates the sodium pump, which pumps sodium into the crypts along with its chlorine ion. So as the chlorine is coming out, even it activates the sodium pump, so the sodium also comes out. So sodium, chloride, water, every important ions, what everything is lost from the fecus matter. So this extra sodium chloride causes extreme osmosis of water from blood, providing rapid flow of fluid along with salt. So fluid and salt all are lost, and this excess fluid also wash away the bacteria and combates. So as we already discussed, this diarrhea may be useful in the beginning because it may wash out the irritants, it may wash out the bacteria, but later if it is prolonged, it may even lead to the death. So we need to prevent it. So the life of a person with a cholera can be saved by giving a sodium chloride solution or electrolyte solution. So now let us see the absorption in large intestine. So till now we understood all this process, how diarrhea is caused, what is the mucus secretion. So now let us see absorption in large intestine. 1500 ml of chyme pass by ileocecal valve. Ileocecal valve is at the beginning of large intestine, at the end of small intestine, right, into the large intestine each day. So like you can see 1500 milliliters of chyme is passing. So water and electrolytes from the chyme are absorbed in colon, leaving less than 100 ml of fluid to be excreted in fecus, and also essential ions are reabsorbed back, leaving only 1 to 5 milliequivalents each of sodium and chloride ions lost in feces. So normally if the large intestine is normal, properly functioning, then it tries to almost reabsorb water, important ions, but as we seen in diarrhea, if it is abnormal, then it will also leak out them into the feces. So most of the absorption in large intestine occurs in the proximal half of colon, giving its name as absorbing colon. So most important part is proximal colon because it reabsorbs most of the important one. But the distal colon function for few storage until the excretion of feces, and that is called storage colon. So we have proximal colon and distal colon, two names. Proximal colon is called absorbing colon because it is absorbing all the essential one, and the distal colon is called storage colon because it is storing the feces until it gets defecated out. So now let us see the absorption and secretion of electrolytes in water. The mucus of large intestine absorbs sodium, chloride, and it have very tight junctions when compared with the small intestine. So because of this tight junction, even the back diffusion, that is from the large intestine into the lumen, is not possible in the case of large intestine. But in small intestine, sometimes if we get hyperosmotic kind, then sometimes the fluid may also come from small intestine cells into the lumen. But here that is not possible because of its higher tight junctions when compared with small intestine. And although still on the same as in small intestine, it leads to higher sodium absorption. So here in large intestine there is no back diffusion. It occurs due to tight junctions. So mucosa of large intestine secrete bicarbonate, and chlorine is absorbed in exchange. Of course we know if bicarbonate is secreted out means chlorine, this exchange pump, right? Bicarbonate chlorine exchange. So the released bicarbonate now neutralize the acidic end products in the bacteria of large intestine. So absorption of sodium and chloride ions creates osmotic gradients across the large intestine mucosa, which also cause the absorption of water. Always we know sodium where there the water follows. So now as the sodium is absorbed into the cell, even the water also get absorbed. So by this way we are preserving both sodium, chloride ions, different ions, and also we are preserving the water so that not lot of water is lost by a fecal matter. So now now let us check out what is the maximum absorption capacity of large intestine. So large intestine can absorb like about 5 to 8 liters of fluid and electrolytes each day. So if toxins or bacteria accumulate, they may form crypts and lead to diarrhea, leading to secrete 10 or more liters of fluid each day. So toxins also have a chance to form in crypts, and they will also lead to diarrhea. So it leads to severe or lethal diarrhea. Now let us see the bacterial action in colon. Colon bacilli is present in absorbing part of colon, as we already discussed, the proximal part, which is capable of digesting cellulose and provide extra few calories to body. So already cellulose is not digested in our body because we don't have cellulase enzyme, but our colon does this work for us and tries to give some extra calories. Even though it gives this extra calories, not so useful because it's just minute in number. So vitamin K, B12, thiamine, riboflavin, and different types of gases which are called flatters in colon by carbon dioxide, hydrogen gas, methane, all are formed by our bacteria. The bacteria formed vitamin K is very important for blood coagulation because daily food may not have that much amount of vitamin K, which is essential for our blood coagulation. So the bacteria which is forming the vitamin K in our large intestine is very useful for our coagulation. So the last one is fermentation in large intestine. So anaerobic bacteria and yeast break down the dietary substances and others in the large intestine to obtain the energy for the normal growth and maintenance of cellular function. So fermentation, the process only you can understand here. Yeast plays a major role, and also anaerobic bacteria. So they break down the food which is present in large intestine, somewhat which is essential, into energy and for the normal growth and maintenance of cellular function. So important substrate for this fermentation are starch, dietary fibers, which are non-starch polysaccharides, and also we have proteins. So even though lot of digestion has completed in small intestine, even absorption, but sometimes some may be missed by small intestine, and those here will again undergo the fermentation process and they'll acquire the energy. So now let us see the composition of feces, the final one. So 3/4 of water is there in the feces, 1/4 of solid matter, that is about that 1/4 also all waste material, 30% dead bacteria, 10 to 20% of fat, 10 to 20% of inorganic matter, 2 to 3% of protein, 30% of undigested roughage from food, and dried constituents of digested juice such as bile pigments, stored epithelial, sloughed off, peeled off epithelial cells, And the brown color of the fecus is by stercobilin and urobilin, which are the derivatives of bilirubin. We already discussed in our previous videos. You can check out it in our liver functions, that video. And order is given by bacterial action. The order of the fecus is due to bacterial action, and the actual order for these products, the actual order the actual odoriferous products in the fecal matter are indole, scatol, mercaptans, hydrogen sulfide. So these are the major ones which lead to odor in the fecus. So by this we completed our functions of large intestine. We'll check out finally are the diagrams and conclude this chapter. So here we have different boxes also, like composition of large intestine secretion. You can see the large intestine secretion mainly contain water, mucus, sodium, chloride, bicarbonate, potassium, calcium. We discuss this. And you can see this is a cryptoflubricant which is found in all parts of small intestine, large intestine, between villi, which secretion almost pure extracellular fluid. So you can see these are the mucous goblet cells, these are the epithelial cells, these are the Paneth cells. Remember, the secretions are almost pure extracellular fluid. And here we can check out this flow chart, the process of gut fermentation. Substance in the colon like carbohydrate, proteins are the by bacterial and yeast enzyme, especially anaerobic bacteria, break down the substrate. The breakdown products are short chain fatty acids, acetic acid, propionic acid, butyric acid, branch chain fatty acids, ammonia, carboxylic acid, phenolic acid, amine. So these like fate of breakdown products into, they may be absorbed or eliminated in fecus. If unnecessary, eliminated in fecus. If some of them are useful, they'll get absorbed, or some of them will get rectal gases, or they're utilized by microflora. So you can see this rectal gases are again may be absorbed, and this absorbed one will finally form SCFM and short chain fatty acids, or butyrate, a primary nutrient for clonocytes. And here we can see the probable substrate for fermentation. We have carbohydrate, protein and others. So carbohydrates we have starch. Non-starch substances are polysaccharides, dietary fibers, pectin, cellulose, hemicellulose, unabsorbed sugars, modified cellulose, polydextrose. In proteins we have dietary proteins, endogenous proteins such as digestive enzymes. Others are like intestinal glycoprotein, mucopolysaccharides. So coming to the summary of functions of large intestine, the reabsorption of water and maintenance of fluid and electrolyte balance, helps in formation of stools, facilitate the fermentation process, absorption of certain end products of fermentation like butyrate, vitamin B12, vitamin K, thiamine, riboflavin, and storage of fecal matter until eliminated in the distal part mainly. So these are all the functions and features of a large intestine.